Pre-game, post-game, every game. Presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at bodog.net. JPat and Wadden here with you as we get you set for the pregame between the Canucks and the Oilers, live from Edmonton tonight. And JPat, it looks like, although the Oilers will be putting an NHL roster out on the ice, the Canucks will be countering with what looks like mainly a minor league team this evening.
Yeah, Canucks are up against it. Let's be honest here. I know that there's some angst in this market without a win through 4 preseason games. Man, if they come out of Edmonton with a victory tonight, it'll be a story, and I think there'll be some angst then on the Oilers side of things, because you're right, McDavid and Draisaitl, and you name it, the big names are out. The stars are shining in Edmonton. For the Canucks, not so much. A little surprised just based on what we saw in Seattle, basically a no-show on Saturday, the fact that Bruce wasn't happy about things. Kind of thought that maybe they would send a plumper lineup to Edmonton tonight, just try to set the tone for the second week of the preseason. But boy, they're really going with essentially farmhands, American hockey leaguers. That's with all due respect to the guys that are playing, the Connor Garlands, Vasily Podkolzins. There are some NHLers, you have to, obviously, to meet the threshold of veterans in a preseason lineup. But when you look at the Oiler lineup compared to the Vancouver lineup, the scale certainly tipped in favor of the home team tonight.
Yeah, Bruce Boudreau was asked today after the skate out of UBC just the importance of winning in the preseason. They've gone 0-4 so far. Here's what the head coach had to say.
It was a few years ago, not few, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when Bednar took over Colorado. They went 7-0 in the preseason and ended up with 48 points. I don't put a lot of stock into it. You just want to see the right things being done. That's probably why I was upset the other night. You can, no matter who you got in the lineup, you never want to get outworked. And that's where I thought we were outworked. So, but as far as wins and losses and everything else, I look at it as, if we win that game, I always call it the difference between a rut and a groove. Both the same thing, both totally different answers. We win that game, you could sit there and say, oh, we've only lost 1 out of 4. So, but I think we'll get down to our team pretty soon, and I think we'll be fine after that. I get a lot of faith in this group. And I told them that today, that I think they're a really good team, and we're just going to ramp it up.
All right, so basically, JPat, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose in the preseason, but effort is huge. And we saw a disheveled Bruce Boudreau after that game against Seattle the other night. He's just more disappointed. Looked like a disappointed dad, so to speak, in the effort that he got from his guys. Yeah,
so he had the big boys were out early at UBC this morning, and I do wonder if we're going to see those players now on Wednesday in Abbotsford, Friday at home against Arizona, and this is sort of the last stand for a lot of those tweener guys and guys that still think they've got an outside shot at making this big league lineup. But he basically had his veterans. He had Miller and Pettersson and Horvat, Quinn Hughes, and I think that he skated them pretty hard. I was out there this morning, skated those guys hard, but that was the non-traveling group. And so I do think that there's some message sending here, and then you get into game action tonight. And as we said, poor Colin Delia, he wants an opportunity to show that there's a battle for the backup job. But when you look at the defense that he's got in front of him and all of the minor leaguers that are going into Edmonton tonight, boy, Colin Delia is going to be under the gun. He gets the start. Artur Silovs is the backup. Interesting to note, again, Mike DiPietro's in camp here, but he has basically gone missing in action, and it doesn't look now like he's going to get any preseason games for the Vancouver Canucks. I would assume he'll be part of the next roster move that is sent down to Abbotsford, and it sounded like Bruce had suggested that maybe those moves would happen after tonight's game, and then you get basically down to an NHL roster with a couple of hopefuls that'll be around for those last 2 games. But in terms of what the Canucks are sending to Edmonton tonight, when you've got Sheldon Dries centering your top line, when you've got Tristan Nielsen, who was terrific at Young Stars in Penticton and showed well in Whistler at training camp, he's on the second line. He's going to get power play time as well. That's the kind of lineup that the Canucks are sending to Rogers Place tonight.
Yeah, a few things standing out in the lineup tonight for the Canucks. One in particular, Will Lockwood getting 4th line duties. What does that say about Lockwood and perhaps his shot at making this team?
Well, that's exactly where he would be if he makes the National Hockey League. So I don't think there's any sort of message sending to Will Lockwood. If he's going to make this team, it's going to be in a depth role. And so whether there are better players above him in a lineup like tonight, I think this is slotting him in a position where you want to see what he can do. Bring some energy, be physical, finish your checks. Hopefully he's fully healthy. I don't think he'd be playing if he wasn't, but on one of the recent podcasts, the home game against Seattle last week, we said it looked like he got nicked up, didn't appear to be 100%, but taking part in the morning skate this morning. And you just want to see hustle. You want to see hustle and determination from everybody, because there wasn't really any of that in Seattle the other night. And in some ways, going with a much lesser lineup, these guys recognize what they're up against. And if they don't show well, then yeah, they could be embarrassed. And nobody wants to be embarrassed. So you hope that brings out the best in all of these guys that are wearing Canuck uniforms tonight. But for Will Lockwood, it's another opportunity. And it just has to, there's got to be something in his game. And he's not going to be my do-something guy, but I need to see him. It can't just be on the periphery for him. And that's not his game, but I don't think he should get worked up about the fact that he's on a fourth line, even if he thinks that maybe he should be playing higher in this lineup. Get out there, do the types of things that you would expect from a fourth liner at the NHL level. Certainly we'll be keeping an eye on Will Lockwood in this hockey game.
What about Danny DeKeyser? Do you think he should be concerned the fact that he's getting second pair and Christian Wolanin is going to play with Kyle Burrows, who looks to be, maybe one of the true NHLers that'll be on this line or in this lineup for the Canucks tonight?
Yeah, if you're Dan DeKeyser, I don't think you can get too worked up about depth chart at this point. Head down, do your job, show that you can compete. And we worry about the pace of the game for Danny DeKeyser at this stage of his career. Well, the pace is set by a guy who wears number 97 in Edmonton, and we'll see how much DeKeyser's out on the ice against him. But there's nowhere to hide when Connor McDavid is doing Connor McDavid things. And so DeKeyser skated with Noah Juulsen in the morning skate. I would assume that's the way that they're going to roll out. Guillaume Brisebois and Brady Keeper look to be the third pairing for the Vancouver Canucks. But you're right. If they go into this game and Christian Wolanin and Kyle Burrows are your top pair, somebody's got to match up against McDavid and Draisaitl. So maybe it's the old short straw situation. But yeah, for Dan DeKeyser, I think more of this is about the speed of the game and just showing that he can keep up. And I think that the Oilers are going to be flying, and we'll see what the Canucks can do to match them.
Yeah, McDavid and Draisaitl probably licking their chops looking at that defense core tonight for the Canucks. Maybe perhaps in the goal as well. Colin Delia getting the start over Arthur Seeloff. So I think that tells us a little bit about depth chart in terms of the goaltending.
Yeah, look, I'm a little surprised just the way the goalies have been run out here. They started with those split squad games and needed 4 goaltenders that opening night of the preseason. And since then, really, it's been Thatcher Demko. Demko's played 5 of the 6 periods. Since then, Artur Silovs came in for the third period and a little bit of overtime against Seattle at home last week. Silovs will be the backup here, but Colin Delia hasn't played. Neither has Spencer Martin. And so these are the two guys that are apparently battling for the backup job behind Thatcher Demko. I won't be surprised if Delia goes the distance in this game. Now, maybe some of that will be determined by the way the game unfolds, but I think this is an opportunity for Colin Delia to put a best foot forward. They're going to need goaltending against this Oilers lineup. I would think Spencer Martin probably gets the call on Wednesday in Abbotsford, a building that he's familiar with, and then you keep Thatcher Demko for that final preseason game, give him all 60 if that's what he and Ian Clark think is in his best interest. But Demko looks ready for the regular season. It's the fact that these other guys, they haven't seen game action in a while. Now, Spencer Martin, if he is the backup to Demko this year, this is sort of his lot in life. He's going to have to get used to going a week, 10 days between games. So maybe some of this is preparation in that regard. But for Colin Delia, hasn't played since the opening night of the preseason. I'm sure he's itching to get in there, and he's going to be tested against this Oiler lineup this evening. There's no doubt about that.
Jake Virtanen, former Canuck on a PTO with the Oilers. He's played plenty of preseason action with Edmonton. Really hasn't shown much. Could be his last shot really in the NHL this evening against his old team.
Yeah, and I saw Jay Woodcroft had high praise for him and suggested that he'd actually had a decent preseason. Most of the reports from the media and the fans, they haven't seen much from Jake Virtanen, and that's probably not a huge surprise to Canuck fans either. Jake, one of those guys that could go long stretches where you didn't notice him an awful lot. You're on a PTO. You're trying to earn a contract. You have to step up and stand out. This is how quickly life moves in the National Hockey League. There are 2 guys in the Vancouver lineup tonight that were teammates of Jake Virtanen's in a Canuck uniform. Nils Höglander is one. Guillaume Brisebois, who's barely played for the Canucks, but has played. Those are the 2 guys that have played with Jake Virtanen as a teammate. Now they're on the other side tonight. So, yeah, it's a storyline. There's no doubt about it. But, he's moved on. I think most Canuck fans have moved on as well, and we'll see if Virtanen's able to land a contract, but certainly a subplot heading into this game. I just think that there are others on that Edmonton side that the Canucks have to be a little more concerned with than Jake Virtanen tonight.
In particular, number 97. All right, you were out at practice at UBC today, so a bit of a different practice for the Canucks because they had one half of the guys that are going to be going to Edmonton, the other half of the guys that are going to be staying here. One guy in particular that was out on the ice, Brock Boeser, we got an update from the head coach on Boeser's status.
Yeah, he's been skating really hard. He's still not shooting pucks right now. And I think he's got another doctor's appointment soon. So we'll see how that goes. But they're putting him through quite a lot of skating, which is going to keep his conditioning up.
You told us last week that you were hoping he was going to skate, so he's been skating on his own?
He's been skating with the injured guys for the last 4 or 5 days, I think now.
Any idea of progress when he might be coming back?
That I don't have any idea right now. Obviously we want him back when he's ready to come back, and not before. But he's determined. He wants to get back as soon as possible. So I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best.
All right, JPat. So good sign there that Brock Boeser is back out on the ice and handling pucks. The Canucks are going to need him, obviously, at the start of the season here. I'm stating the obvious. They got to get off to a good start. We've seen the way the preseason has gone so far, but, the Canucks are going to need one of their top goal scorers back in Boeser. Good sign that he's back out on the ice today.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. He showed up at the bench holding a nice coffee when the early group was out there, and I thought, okay, kind of looking like a coach. Then the game group skated, and then a couple of Justin Dowling. That was the first sign of Justin Dowling. He was on the ice as well. Boeser not shooting pucks, so just it's baby steps here. Again, he hurt his hand. He didn't hurt his legs, so he's able to skate, and apparently has been skating, but interesting to watch. Not a lot of firing of the puck. So I think there's going to be a progression here as he works through all of this. Ilya Mikheyev is expected to get back on the ice as early as tomorrow. That's a good news story for the Vancouver Canucks. Travis Dermott's the guy that I think there's some concern now because it's almost been a week since he left where he needed help off the ice last week out at UBC. And Bruce Boudreau saying today, no update for Travis Dermott. And as we said, after those three, Quinn Hughes, OEL, and Tyler Myers, it kind of feels like it's open audition still, and we're into the second week of the preseason for the Vancouver Canucks. Travis Dermott would love to be there, getting a chance to put his best foot forward, but you can't show what you can do if you're not healthy, and right now, no signs of Travis Dermott or when he's going to be cleared to get back out on the ice.
Yeah, that's good signs for Danny DeKeyser, Christian Wolanin, Kyle Burrows, who are all playing tonight in terms of trying to take an opportunity while it's presented to you. We'll see if they can seize it. Let's take a look at the Bodog line for tonight, and it does not look good for this AHL-laden lineup that the Canucks are going to send to the Chuck. Plus 230 for the Canucks. The Oilers minus 325. Boy, you got to put a lot of money down just to make a little bit of scratch from the Oilers tonight. I don't know about you, JPat. I'm staying away from both lines there.
Yeah, I had a guy that works for a site in Vegas DM me as I was sitting out at UBC. I tweeted out what I thought were the lines. And this guy says, really? Are they really sending this lineup to Edmonton? So, tough to set lines when it seems like there's such a disparity between the talent levels. So, it's preseason. I think we just skate on by this one. And again, you have to use this as an evaluation, though. You've got, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, Neil Zaman getting a great opportunity here as the second-line center. He's not ready to be a second-line center in the National Hockey League, but if the Oilers trot out their big line and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is their second-line center, or if they split McDavid and Draisaitl, what a great opportunity to see, just where Nils Åman is with his game. They've given him great opportunities to this point through training camp and the preseason, and now they're asking him basically to center a second line. So, there's a guy that I think I'm going to be watching fairly closely in this hockey game. As we said, though, when you look at, Åman getting power play time and Danila Klimovich getting power play time and Tristan Nielsen getting power play time, if the Canucks are able to draw penalties, it kind of gives you a sense of what they're up against and just how difficult this game is going to be. But you can look at it at a team level, and sure, there's going to be an outcome, and the Canucks kind of feel like they're in tough already. But then I think you have to, if you're management, you're looking at this on an individual basis, and you're looking at assignments. And we talked about Will Lockwood and the role that he would play. And, can a Tristan Nielsen, if he wants to earn an NHL contract at some point, what can he show? What a great showcase for him to step up. And he's been good. And he's been a guy that we've talked about at other levels here already in the preseason. Let's see what he looks like against primarily an NHL roster on the other side tonight.
Lots of opportunity for a lot of guys tonight on the Canucks. Who you got that needs to do something tonight in Edmonton?
Yeah, I think this one is Dan DeKaiser. I just kind of feel like this could be last stand. Certainly there were rumblings at the rink that cuts are coming. We've seen a lot of other guys around the league on PTOs have been released, and so I don't know how much time is left in the experiment. The Travis Dermott injury factor probably does play in, and maybe that buys a guy like Danny DeKaiser a little bit of time, but I just think against a full-blown Oilers team, there's nowhere to hide out there. When he's on the ice, he's going to play a top 4 role. He's going to get minutes. He's going to get penalty killing duty as well. So I think this is a guy to put in the sights tonight. Danny DeKaiser, what have you got? What's left in the tank here? And can you keep up with the speed of some of the fastest players in the National Hockey League? So yeah, Dan DeKaiser on a PTO. He's my do something guy tonight.
Do you agree with JPat's do something candidate? Leave the comments below. Maybe you've got somebody else that you would like to suggest that needs to do something tonight. You can always hit us up in the Great Clips inbox as well, 778-402-9680. Remember, we'll be back post-game, so be sure to follow the podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms as we'll put a bow on the Canucks and the Oilers. Week 2 of the preseason, regular season, just about here in the NHL. That's been another edition of the Rink Wide Podcast, Vancouver edition, and we are presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.